Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a real classic, the growth share matrix.
Ah, yes, the BCG Matrix. Bruce Henderson, 1970. Still famous.
Totally. It was this, well, pretty neat way for companies to look at their different businesses and figure out, where the money should go
Yeah.
based on how attractive the market is and how strong they are in it.
And it really stuck around. I mean, Harvard Business Review called it one of the frameworks that changed the world. You still see it everywhere in business schools.
Absolutely. But look, 1970 feels like a lifetime ago in business terms, doesn't it?
It really does. The whole landscape.
Yeah.
It shifted.
Yeah.
You don't have as many of those massive, stable conglomerates ruling the roost. Change happens incredibly fast now.
And those competitive advantages companies used to rely on, they seem much less durable.
Exactly. Which brings us to the big question, I guess. Does that original BCG matrix, that classic four-box grid, still hold up today? Is it still useful?
Right. That's what we're diving into. So maybe let's just quickly recap the original matrix for everyone.
Good idea. So you've got two axes, right? On one, you have relative market share, basically, how
Right.
big you are compared to your largest competitor,
Okay.
market share. And on the other axis, market growth rate, how fast the whole market is growing.
Got it. High or low growth, high or low share. And that gives you the four quadrants.
Precisely. You've got the cash cows.
The famous ones,
Right.
low growth market, but you have a high share. The steady earners.
That's the idea. You milk them, essentially. They generate cash reliably, but you don't pour tons back in because the growth just isn't there. They fund other things.
Okay. Then you have the stars.
Right. High growth and high share. These are your winners in exciting markets.
So for stars, you reinvest. Keep pouring fuel on the fire.
Exactly. You want to maintain that leadership as the market grows. Heavy investment needed.
Makes sense. Then question marks.
Or problem children sometimes. High growth market. So it's attractive, but your share is low.
The tricky ones. What's the play there?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Do you invest a lot to try and grab share and turn it into a star? Or do you decide it's not worth it and get out? Needs serious thought.
A real strategic gamble. And the last box.
The pets, or sometimes called dogs, low growth, low share, not a great place to be.
Yeah, sounds like it. So with pets, the advice is usually divest.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Liquidate, sell them off, maybe find a tiny niche if you're lucky. But generally, they're draining resources without much upside.
Okay, so that's the framework. And the underlying logic back then was high share equals higher profits.
Yeah, the idea was that leading market share gave you cost advantages.
Yeah.
Scale economies, the experience curve effect. You got better and cheaper at doing things than competitors.
Right. And high growth markets were the best place to actually build that leading share.
Exactly. It was seen as easier to gain ground when the whole pie was expanding rapidly.
So the matrix did a couple of key things for companies back then.
It really did. First, especially for those big conglomerates, it gave them a clear logic for moving money around.
So instead of just letting each division keep its own profits.
Right. You'd take the excess cash generated by the reliable cash cows and funnel it towards the promising question marks, or reinvest in the stars. It was about actively managing the corporate portfolio's cash flow.
Smarter capital allocation, basically.
You got it.
Yeah.
And the second big thing was helping balance the portfolio.
How so?
Well, it gave managers a simple visual tool to think about balancing, exploiting their current mature businesses, the cows, with exploring new opportunities for future growth, the stars and question marks, today versus tomorrow.
Exploit and explore. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But as we said, the world's changed. What are the biggest shifts impacting this framework?
Oh, where to start? I mean, the sheer speed of change is probably number one.
Yeah.
Technology, globalization, shifting consumer tastes, everything moves faster.
So that stable advantage for market share isn't so stable anymore.
Not nearly as much. Companies have to constantly adapt, innovate, almost reinvent themselves just to stay relevant. That long, slow ride as a cash cow, much rarer.
And you mentioned market share itself isn't the golden ticket it once was.
Well, it's still important, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's not the only predictor of success, or even the main one sometimes. We saw that in one of the exhibits, right?
Yeah, Exhibit 1. It showed innovation adoption time shrinking like crazy.
Exactly, and profit margins becoming way more volatile. Plus, the link between being the market share leader and being the profit leader, it's weakened.
So being big isn't enough. You have to be agile too, able to pivot, shape the market.
Precisely. Adaptability is huge now. That exhibit really hammered home how much faster advantages decay.
Okay, so given this faster, more chaotic world, What has actually happened to businesses within the matrix? Did BCG find shifts in where companies sit?
They did. They basically treated public U.S. companies like business units in a giant portfolio and tracked them.
And
And they found companies are spitting through those quadrants way faster, comparing like the late 80s, early 90s to around 2010.
big difference.
Huge. In about three-quarters of industries, the average time a company spent in any one quadrant roughly halved.
Halved.
Wow. Yeah. And another study on big conglomerates found the average time in a quadrant was down to less than 2 years by 2012. Things are just much more dynamic. There are exceptions, of course, like maybe food retail, some parts of healthcare, but generally much faster churn.
So maintaining that star or cash cow status is way harder, takes constant effort.
Definitely. And linked to that, the whole cash cow generates lots of cash idea has weakened too.
How so?
That other chart, Exhibit 2, showed it clearly. The share of total corporate profits coming from cash cows was like 25% lower in 2012 compared to 1982.
So they're less profitable, relatively speaking.
Or at least their dominance in generating profits has shrunk. And that mature phase, the
Yeah.
cash-generating part of the life cycle, it's also shorter cut by more than half on average in those faster-moving industries.
Less milk and for less time. Okay, this really paints a picture of instability compared to the 70s. So back to the main question. Is the matrix just broken then? Outdated.
You know, the argument from BCG, and I think it makes sense, is no, not entirely broken. The core idea is still incredibly relevant.
The idea of balancing the portfolio, cash generation versus growth investment.
Exactly that. That fundamental need hasn't gone away. But how you use the matrix, how you think about it, that needs a serious update.
Okay, so it needs adapting. What kind of changes are we talking about?
Two big things, really. Speed and a much bigger focus on strategic experimentation.
Strategic experimentation. Okay, unpack that.
It means you can't just rely on your existing winners. You have to be constantly exploring, testing new ideas, new products, new business models. You need more question marks in the pipeline.
So placing more bets, essentially, but maybe smaller ones initially.
Exactly. More bets, tested quickly and cheaply. Learn fast, iterate, or cut bait quickly if it's not working. And the matrix itself needs to be like baked into how the organization works, not just a once-a-year planning exercise.
Right. And you mentioned competitiveness needing a broader definition than just market share.
Yeah, I mean, market share still matters, but you also need to think about adaptability, innovation capabilities, network effects, brand resonance. It's more complex.
This sounds like a much more active, almost restless approach to managing the portfolio.
It has to be. And Google is often held up as a company that really gets this experimental approach.
Yeah, you hear about their moonshots and things.
Right. Their whole mission talks about innovation and iteration.
Yeah.
And look at their portfolio. You've got the massive cash cow of AdWords, the star like Android, but then all these question marks like Waymo with self-driving cars or projects coming out of X.
And it's how they manage that mix, right? Not just having the different projects.
Totally. It's apparently deep in their culture. They encourage generating lots of ideas, these potential question marks. Then they use data analytics to pick some promising ones.
And test them small first.
Yeah, like Gmail started as an internal thing. Google Glass had limited releases. Test, learn, scale, or sometimes shut down. They seem pretty good at launching and sunsetting projects, maybe 10, 15 a year or something. That's real portfolio dynamism.
Okay, so that's the kind of mindset needed. How does BCG formalize this into, like, a Matrix 2.0? What are the practical steps?
They boil it down to four main imperatives. First one is accelerate.
It's a beat again?
Yep. Evaluate the portfolio way more often, shorten those planning cycles, make it faster to get approval to invest or divest, cut the red tape.
Makes sense. Keep up with the market pace. What's number 2?
Balance exploration and exploitation, but with some specific actions.
Okay.
So 1, actively increase the number of question marks. Build a culture where it's okay to try things and fail sometimes.
Less fear of failure, more appetite for calculated risk.
Right. 2, test those question marks fast and cheap. Use rapid prototyping, virtual tests, whatever works. 3, milk the cows, efficiently keep innovating incrementally. Streamline operations, get the cash out.
And the pets? Still divest.
Well, yes, but keep them on a short leash. Watch them closely, learn from why they failed if possible, and be ready to pull the plug efficiently to capture any remaining value. Don't let them linger and drain resources. Apparently, the number of pets has actually gone up by like 50% over the last few decades.
Interesting. More businesses falling into that quadrant. Okay, imperative 3.
Select rigorously. Use better data, more data sources, predictive analytics. Make smarter, evidence-based calls on which question marks to double down on and which cows or pets it's really time to let go of.
Less gut feel, more data science and portfolio decisions?
Kind of, yeah. And the fourth imperative is measure and manage the portfolio economics of experimentation.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means understanding things like how many experiments, how many question marks do we need to be running just to sustain growth? What's our hit rate? How many question marks actually become stars? What's the average cost when one doesn't make it?
So managing the innovation pipeline like its own system with inputs, outputs, costs.
Exactly. You need to ensure the whole system is balanced, so you've always got future stars and promising question marks ready to take over as today's cows inevitably fade and the pets need divesting.
Mhm.
It's about ensuring the long-term health and profitability of the entire portfolio through this constant experimentation.
It really paints a picture of the matrix not as a static snapshot, but as the dashboard for a very dynamic engine.
That's a great way to put it. It's managing a process of continuous renewal. And, despite all the changes, that original insight from Bruce Henderson still rings true. Can I read that quote?
Please do.
He said, every company needs products in which to invest cash. Every company needs products that generate cash. And every product should eventually be a cash generator. Otherwise, it's worthless. Only a diversified company with a balanced portfolio can use its strengths to truly capitalize on its growth opportunities.
That really holds up, doesn't it? The fundamental need for balance.
It does. The core principle is timeless, even if the context and the way you achieve that balance have dramatically changed.
So, wrapping up our deep dive then, the big takeaway is the growth share matrix isn't dead, but it needed a serious refresh for the 21st century.
Absolutely. Speed, experimentation, a wider view of what makes you competitive, those are the keys now. You have to actively manage the portfolio with much more agility.
It's less about plotting boxes and more about managing flows and bets in a fast-changing world.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, right, this whole balancing act, cash now versus growth later, it applies beyond just giant companies.
How do you mean?
Well, think about your own career maybe, or even personal projects or investments.
Right.
What are your reliable cash cows that provide stability? What are your high-growth stars? What risky but potentially high-reward question marks are you exploring? And what pets may be draining your energy or resources without enough return?
Applying the BCG matrix to your own life, that's definitely something to chew on. How are you managing your portfolio in this fast-moving world?
Exactly. Food for thought.